You're listening to the Adventurous Reinvention podcast. I'm Allison Boyle, aka She Dreams of Alpine, and this is the show that's dedicated to all the adventurous spirits out there who have either been transformed by the outdoors or are interested in what it looks like to step into a new, adventurous, and courageous kind of identity in their life. It doesn't matter what your background is in the outdoors, what age you're starting at, or where you grew up. If you're curious about the outdoors and using adventure as a way to reinvent yourself, you're in the right place. I'll be sharing all kinds of personal adventure stories, lessons I've learned from the mountains, teaching what I know about the outdoors and leadership, and interviewing some amazing adventurous women all along the way. I've been coaching women on becoming safe, confident, and self-sufficient backpackers and leaders of their own adventurous lives since 2018, and I know exactly what big fears and self-doubts can pop up along the way. I have so much to share with you, so let's dive in. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to the Adventurous Reinvention podcast. Now, I have been so busy this summer. We are running multiple programs. We have our Backpacking Badass program. We have our Adventurous Reinvention Experience, which always takes place every summer. We have 3 groups this year that we're supporting in that experience. And we are also running behind the scenes. This is only been available to our existing clients. So our existing Backpacking Badass students. We have also been running a brand new program called the Confident Backcountry Leader. They have been my founding members, going through it with me, learning all the things, doing some extra training on becoming leaders of their friend groups, their families, knowing what it takes to take that extra step and really step into a leadership role on the trail and in the backcountry. And that program has been amazing, but building it from scratch, I've been also doing a ton of training on my own. I have been working on a very big goal with climbing, so training multiple times a week for that, and then training alongside my Adventurous Reinvention Experience clients in our hiking training, getting ready for 3 weeks of backpacking with them. At least I am. They all have different trips that they're going to be joining on, but I say all this to say it's been a busy summer. We've also had family, running the day-to-day of a business and all the things. So I have been a little bit slow with my podcast, it feels like, the last few weeks, just because it's just been a lot of things we're juggling and I put other things as more priority. But I was thinking to myself, what I would love to do is rerun one of our most popular episodes. This is an episode that I refer people to again and again and again. And so if you are brand new to the podcast and you're like, you've never heard it, you've never stumbled across it, this is one worth listening to. It actually came on the tail end of my 2025 Adventurous Reinvention Experience groups, and something that I saw from spending, multiple weeks out there in the backcountry with them that I thought was a topic that needed to be discussed. So this is an MVP episode, a replay, but it is a classic. If you have never listened to it before, I think you'll like it. If you have listened to it before, this could be a good refresher and reminder that you need. I frequently have clients tell me this changed everything for them. They've even printed out some of the things that I mentioned on this episode. So I think you're going to love it. I hope you enjoy how to make uphill hiking easier without more training. All right, let's dive in. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to the Adventurous Reinvention podcast. You're listening to episode 58, and today I want to talk to you about hiking uphill. So we're talking like elevation gain, like doing something that's tough, going up a hill, going over a mountain pass, all the things, and specifically how to make it easier. Now, I just got back from the Eastern Sierras in California, where I took 24 of my clients from our Adventurous Reinvention Experience program on a multi-night backpacking trip adventure. So one of our groups had a 4-night trip or 4-day trip, and then another group had a 5-day trip. So they had it was like a beginner group and an intermediate group. So we had different levels of difficulty. But for a lot of them, it was their first time hiking in big mountains like the Eastern Sierras. And so some of their days had anywhere from like 1,500 to 2,500 feet of elevation gain in a single day. And some of the trips, especially our intermediate group trip, had like back-to-back elevation gain days. Like I think one of their days was, the first day was like 2,400 feet of elevation gain in about 5 miles. And then they had a couple of 1,700 feet of elevation gain days, and then another 2,200 foot of elevation gain. And then I think they went downhill on the last day. So it was something like that. And for many people, like in these groups, especially the beginner group, but also some of the intermediate group people as well, it was also their first taste of being and hiking at altitude. So like being up higher in the mountains, where it's a little bit like it takes an adjustment and it's a little bit harder to breathe. So they were also adapting to that challenge as well. And every time like I do one of these trips, I know that the uphills are going to feel hard for many of them, especially if they have never done anything like this before. And what I see some of my clients do and step into when the uphills get hard is that tendency to like beat themselves up and go into maybe a negative thought spiral and generally just dreading the uphill sections, especially in, maybe more of our beginner group where this is like their first kind of taste of some of that. And I totally get it. So like, this is mostly just to be like, this is normal to feel this way. I used to do the same thing. So when I first started backpacking, I used to really dread the uphills. They were so hard. It always felt like it never got easier. And I always felt like I was out of breath. And I was getting out there after my first backpacking trip, which was in Half Dome. I was trying to get there as much as possible. But I remember being like, wow, this is really hard. Like it doesn't get easier. But if you can believe it, today, like this is now like 12-ish years later from that very first trip, I really feel quite neutral and, dare I say, even excited about an uphill day. Like I just don't have a lot of mind drama about it anymore. I'm just like, oh, it's an uphill day. Even if it's a really hard uphill day for me, I just don't feel like quite so much drama in my brain about that experience of a hard uphill day. And for me, it's more like, bring it on, let's fucking go kind of energy, or even just a grounded, very just calm, like, I know I've got this, like, this is part of the day, like kind of energy. So there is an important shift that I did eventually make in my journey of being a hiker, a backpacker, getting into mountaineering and climbing, that has really helped me make those tough, challenging days, those big uphill days, way easier. So today, in this episode, I wanted to share some of my best strategies and mindset shifts for making your uphills easier, especially if this is something that you struggle with, like when you have a hard day ahead of you. And this is not necessarily talking about making it physically easier, but more mentally lighter, empowering yourself more through the hard thing and making it even like a little bit fun for you. So to be crystal clear, this is not a podcast episode about hiking training. I'm not laying out strategies to get you physically ready for an uphill in this episode. I do always recommend that if you have a challenging hike ahead of you, that you do prepare and train for the challenge. Yes, of course. This is something that I always do with my clients. It's one of our core lessons inside of the Backpacking Badass program. We have like an entire module dedicated to training where I kind of teach you like my method to preparing for any kind of big adventure you might set for yourself. And then we also do this with our Adventurous Reinvention Experience clients. Like when they join that program, we create training plans for them as part of what they're preparing for their intermediate or beginner trip, depending on which one they signed up for. So we create a training plan for them that they're following throughout the summer to help prepare for the in-person part of our trips. So always prepare. Yes. Like physically, you are going to feel even better, like with the tools that I'm going to share today and physically training for a tough challenge, you will feel top notch. I highly, highly recommend that. It really supports you in feeling ready to tackle the challenge. It gives you a lot of information and data to know, am I ready to take on this kind of challenge? What kind of ways should I fuel my body? Like, what's my pace? It gives you a lot of knowledge to be really prepared for the day when you go out and do your big thing. But what I also know is that you can have trained all summer long, felt really strong before a trip, and still get on an uphill, especially if it's in the mountains and at altitude, and feel like dread or feel tired or feel inadequate. Because sometimes the mountains just do us like that. Like, we are not always guaranteed an easy hike. And sometimes, especially if you're new, you might find that maybe you didn't prepare enough. And that is a lesson that you get to take with you after the trip. It's like not something to be ashamed of. It's something you can be like, okay, like this was harder than I actually was expecting. I'm going to take this knowledge and prepare a little bit better ahead of time for the next one. So definitely don't beat yourself up about that. That is like interesting information, right? It's like something we can take with us. But what you can do for yourself in the moment when you're stuck in the hard thing, like a hard uphill, going over a pass, going to a summit, to make it a little easier is what we're going to talk about today. So to start, there are two ways that you can approach an uphill hike. Basically, when I say I'm using uphill hike really generally here, because it could be like you reaching a summit, you going over a pass, just having a lot of ups and downs in your hike based on the terrain that you're navigating. But basically, it's just a day where you have a lot of elevation gain to tackle and you know it's going to be hard, like it's going to physically push you, right? So there are two ways to approach it. Option one, you can meet it with dread, resistance, and willpower. This sounds like when you're telling yourself it's hard ahead of time, like you're already like anticipating the hardness of it. You're complaining about what's to come. You tend to spiral into a negative self-talk all along the way. Like it's kind of like when you start it, you're kind of like in your head about it. You're like, I suck at this. Why is this so hard for me? Like, is it almost over yet? Like, oh my gosh, I wish it was done. It's just basically being in this sort of like resistance of the thing that you're in mode and generally just beating yourself up about it. Or option two is you can learn how to kind of go with it and really enjoy the uphill hike. And what we do is we double down on your desire. I'm going to dig into these a little bit more, but I'm going to tell you generally. You can double down on your desire, your capability, I call it your let's fucking go energy. And that is when the uphill can actually give you energy instead of taking away your energy. And you can actually finish that climb feeling more powerful than when you started. It's the same uphill, same legs, and totally different experience. One is dread, resistance, and willpower. The other option is doubling down on desire, capability, and let's fucking go energy. And they're subtle, but very important shifts that make huge difference. So let me give you an example. Like, I think this is easily learned in an example. So I'll give you a personal one. If you remember back in the spring, or if you're new to this podcast, you can go back and look at one of these episodes. But I released an episode, actually several episodes, but there was one main one we talked about kind of an overview of this trip. But I released an episode on the podcast with my friend Meg, where we talked about our Royal Arch Loop backpacking adventure. Now, this was something I did like last year. And it was one of the toughest backpacking trips because it was quite technical and it had a lot of physical challenges with it that I had been on in a really long time. Maybe not the hardest thing I'd ever done before, but it was definitely up there on like one of the toughest, most challenging technical trips. And it wasn't my first rodeo. So I can remember that when Meg invited me on this adventure, where we had some days where we were going to be hiking over 4,000 feet of gain in a day. We had another day where we were going to have to haul 10 liters of water because we had to dry camp. So that's like an extra 20 pounds, to put it into perspective, that we would have on our backs in addition to everything else. I remember that, like, when I got invited on that trip, I was a hell yes, because I'm like, Meg is one of my good friends. I know that it's going to be a good time. I knew that I could do it. But I did not get to train like I had wanted to for that trip. This was a season where my dog Lincoln, that I had had since I was 19, had just passed like a month ago. And I was really struggling to get the motivation to rally and train. At the time, I was just kind of like going through the motions, feeling a little bit stressed. But I did know at this point in my backpacking career, or like journey, or whatever you want to call it, that I could handle this challenge, even with minimal training. But I also knew, like, I had the perspective that shit, like, it was going to be harder since I didn't train as much. So I was already going into it being like, okay, Allison, like, you didn't prepare as much as you should have to feel better on this, but I know you can still do it. And that's kind of the mindset I was going into the adventure. And it was a challenging adventure for me, but looking back on that, and I even think I did an episode all about this. I don't recall one episode during that trip where I was like losing myself in a negative downward spiral of self-talk and beating myself up. In general, I just like thoroughly enjoyed the whole challenge of it. So I kind of want to walk you through on how that looked, like talking about what option 2, doubling down on your desire, your capability, and your let's fucking go energy. So for me, on that trip, I doubled down on all of those things. And that's something I can reflect and see back on what I did. So I doubled down on my desire. So that sounded like, in my brain, I want to be here. Like, I chose to be here because this is an exciting and thrilling adventure to be on with a very good friend of mine. It's hard, and that is kind of the point of this one. Like, we were like, wow, this is like one of the most technical backpacking trips in the Grand Canyon. I'm excited to see if we can pull it off. Like, let's go. We were really thrilled about the challenge of it. Like, that was part of the thing. So I really tapped into my desire. Like, I wanted to do this hard thing. This was part of the reason why I signed up for this adventure. So that was doubling down on my desire. So all throughout the trip, I was just thinking about that, like how happy I was to be there, that this was a challenge that I got to choose and do with my friend. It was super exciting to see us pull it off. Like, I was just constantly tapping into that. I also always doubled down on my capability. So it wasn't that like on this trip I didn't have hard moments, because I had a lot of hard moments. You can go back and listen. We released like a daily podcast episode of this adventure, so you can hear about all the hard moments that we went through. But all throughout those hard moments, I was always doubling down on my capability. And in my brain, that sounded like, I know I've got this. I always remind myself of the hard things that I've already done. Like, I've done harder things than this. And everything that I've done before this has prepared me to handle any challenge that I encounter in this moment. And I remember thinking like I was a bit slower than I wanted to be because I hadn't trained. And so I was reminding myself I might be a bit slower than I'd like this time because I didn't train, but I know I can tackle these miles and this elevation gain. My body is strong. I was just always reminding myself of like how fully capable I was to tackle this particular adventure. And I had that self-trust, and I knew I was capable, and I was just reminding myself all the time. And then number 3, I doubled down on my let's fucking go energy. And that just kind of like what happens for me when I do tap into my desire and my capability. So it's like kind of a natural byproduct. It's like, I'm excited to be here. I know I can do this. And in my brain, I'm like, let's go. I'm in the big leagues. I was made for this. Bring it on, Grand Canyon. What do you got for me? Like, that's the kind of energy each day I was kind of waking up to and handling things, right? So these things are what made some of my toughest days on the Royal Arch Loop feel like an exciting part of the whole adventure. They were hard, and it was like fun for me to rise to the challenge and like triumph over that challenge and show myself what I'm capable of. But it started with the thoughts I entertained in my mind, because I could have had a totally different experience on that trip. I could have been all up in my head being like, oh my gosh, Allison, you should have prepared better. Like, you're slower than you should be. This sucks. This is hot. It hurt. It's like, I don't want to be here. Like, I could have just gone down this negative thought loop spiral instead of being like, ooh, I want to be here. Like, this is hard and I'm stoked about that. Like, yes, let's go. Like, the energy in my brain was just so different. So anytime we were in a hard thing, even I remember there was this moment, it was like, I think we woke up at like 3 a.m. because we had a day where we needed to haul the 10 liters of water, and we knew it was a bigger day, and we wanted to get at least like 6 or 7 miles in before we found a rock to hide under in the heat of the day. And man, that was tough. That morning was tough. But you know, sometimes in my brain, it's not always like super excited, but I'm not letting myself go into the negative spiral. It sometimes can be like this grounded, like, okay, I've got this. This morning's going to be tough, and that's okay. Like, keep putting one foot in front of the other. Like, it's going to get better. Like, we can handle this. It's a more grounded energy sometimes, but yeah, if I had woken up at 3 a.m, had a 10-liter water haul, and was hating every moment, I would have been so miserable. So this really, really helped me. And I remember that day so fondly now. Like, Meg and I found this, like, we had a tough morning. We had a lot of challenges that we had some route finding, and it was hot, but then we found this rock, and it was like the most amazing, like 5-hour nap underneath this rock in the middle of the day. And then we finished off at one of the best like campsites. It was a beautiful day, like, and the challenge kind of made it so beautiful. So anyways, that is an example. And like, one of my most favorite things to do with clients, and we kind of do this in the Adventurous Reinvention experience, of course, to whatever their version of hard is, right? But one of my favorite things to do is be able to take them on adventures and kind of raise the bar for them so that they can start to build a resume of experiences to tap into their own future capability, so that when they go on to like plan and lead their own trips, they can kind of tap into past experiences and be like, okay, I've got this. I've done hard things. Like, I can do this, right? I've had several really distinct moments like this in my life before. I just gave you an example. Like, that's just another one that I get to add to my resume of like hard shit that I've done and triumphed over and been really proud of myself. But other moments like that, I remember one early on, when I was first getting into mountaineering. I think it was like 2016 or something like that. I went to Mount Rainier in Washington. The group that I was with, we did the Couts Ice Falls route. And I remember back then, like, it was one of the most challenging trips at that time I had ever taken. And we had one day that we ended up spending 26 hours awake, hiking for a lot of that time. There, of course, was a little bit of downtime here and there throughout that 26 hours, but we were not sleeping. We were like moving or waiting. It just ended up being kind of one of those weird, there were a lot of people on the mountain, and like there were these big groups, and we were navigating all this different like challenges that we kept encountering. Anyway, so it was 26 hours awake. And I remember after being done with that big day being like, holy shit, Allison, like, I was just awake doing something completely and utterly challenging for 26 hours. And I remember that moment, it like opened a possibility in my brain that I never thought. Like if you had told me ahead of time that I was going to be spending 26 hours awake, I would have like, probably can't do that. That's like not in my range of possibility. But it raised the bar for me for so many future scenarios of hard things. Like in the future, I remember I started taking on, other hard adventures, ones that I was planning and leading, backpacking stuff, different kinds of things. And I would maybe be on a tough uphill section or something. And I remind myself in those moments, like, girl, you've hiked for 26 hours. Like, you can do this uphill for another hour. Like, I would just tap into those past experiences where I had those raise the bar moments and be able to kind of like remind myself of my capability. And we are so much more capable than we give ourselves credit for. So that's just something I want to remind you of. And I love to like start to give those moments to my clients. Obviously not hiking 26 hours necessarily, but even just their first tough mountain pass, it's really thrilling for me, especially to see our beginner groups in our adventurous reinvention experience, see them conquer the thing that felt so like looking ahead. You're like, oh my gosh, we're going up that. And you're like, yeah, we're going up that. Like you're going to feel so proud of yourself when we get to the top. And I know from that moment on, like they'll be able to tap into that experience to borrow as future capability in moments that are super hard for them. So that is just an example. I want to dive in a little bit more in this episode about like powerful thoughts versus resistance thoughts, because that's kind of what it breaks down to, like that option 1 and option 2. Because what is going to make the biggest difference on how you perceive the toughness of an uphill hike is how you talk to yourself. So how you talk to yourself is how you give yourself energy, right? If you're telling yourself every single time, this is so hard and I'm not capable, your body is going to listen. You're going to feel the emotion in your body of it being hard. And the moment that your emotional body like follows that train of thought, you start to suppress your capacity and your capability. You're going to start suppressing your energy, and you're going to take away the fun out of the moment where you're growing and doing something so amazing. And you kind of make yourself like the victim of all the hard things in that moment, right? It sounds like these hard things are happening to me versus I am triumphing over all of these hard things, this hard uphill, this hard physical challenge, right? Which is actually the true thing. Like you are triumphing over the hard thing. And when you are actively out there engaging in an uphill, a tough uphill, you are triumphing. This is our brain wants to tell us like it's happening to us, but we are actually out there happening to it, right? Most of us are not being thrown into mountainous situations outside of our own control. So uphills are a challenge of our choosing, right? We are going in pursuit of them. The hill, if you remember back to the moment you chose to do that adventure, right? The hill is a thrilling part of the whole point of why you signed up for it. You're like, I would love to see myself triumph over this challenging trip or challenging summit, whatever it is for you, right? So it's always really good to remind yourself of that truth and then tell yourself more powerful thoughts. Like, you can even be real with yourself. Like, I don't recommend being like overly positive because sometimes that doesn't feel true too, but like be real with yourself, right? So this is hard and I'm capable of doing this. This is hard and I'm a badass. This is hard. Like, listen to this one. I think it makes sense, right? This is hard and I'm lucky I get to do this. I'm thrilled to be here in these mountains, not at work, taking on this challenge. Nobody's forcing me to hike uphill with a pack. I wanted this challenge. How beautiful is it that we get to test ourselves in this way with strong bodies in wild, magical places? And also another example is this is hard and that's okay. Like that's something I also, if I'm just like really in a tough moment, I'm like, this is tough and it's fine. Like it's all right. Like nothing has gone wrong just because this is hard, right? these examples of tiny shifts in how we talk to ourselves and how we meet ourselves during the hard things make all of the difference in how we perceive the experience of the hard thing, the hard uphill, right? We want to get you, when you're doing a tough uphill hike, we want to get you to an empowered place so that when you get to a hard thing, it's a simple thought shift and tapping into your desire that fuels you forward. Because otherwise, the only thing that will fuel you forward if you're in a negative thought spiral is willpower and grind, which are more energy draining. So if we can tap into like, I want to be here, I'm capable of doing this, we are getting energy from this experience, this hard experience. But if we're tapping into like, this is hard and I just want to be done with it, it is more energy draining, right? Another thing I wanted to make note of here, just kind of like in this discussion, is kind of that pre-uphill dread that can happen. So this is like when you have a hard uphill elevation day ahead of you, you know it's like coming up, it's tomorrow or something, and you start to have a lot of pre-anxiety about it before the day the hard uphill has even started, right? So I want to really recommend to just like not let yourself overly entertain the pre-anxiety, right? You signed up for this challenge. You got to remind yourself in these moments too of your capability and your reason to be there, your desire. I personally refuse to like compound the pain of a hard uphill day by feeling anxiety and dread ahead of time, because this takes me out of the present moment of enjoying where I'm at right now. So instead, I always just like remind myself that my body will show up for me when it's time and that I want to be here and I'm excited to take it on, right? So I also want to give you some other practical strategies for making the mental drama of an uphill easier. So in addition to what I just told you, like tapping into your desire and your capability, getting yourself to an empowered place versus a willpower and grind place, there are also some tricks that I have up my sleeve that really help me when I'm struggling to not let my negative thoughts just take over. So I like to think of these as little pattern redirects that you can tap into if you're like, I'm really struggling to like find the reason why I wanted to do this. This is just very hard. I just feel really negative right now. We want to at least try to stop the negative thought loop because it's not going to help you at all. It's just going to make everything harder. So if that is happening to you and you're having a hard time re-tapping into your desire and your capability, my number one tip to anyone that is struggling like this is this is going to sound so simple, but it's to start counting. So like literally counting your steps. It sounds so silly, but I promise you it works. And you can, if counting is not your thing, you can think of something else in place of this. But basically, it gets you to stop focusing on how horrible you feel, how inadequate you feel, and gets you focusing on just the next step, which is so important, right? So I usually recommend, like when my clients are going through it, I'm like, let's do like 50 steps and we'll take a micro break. Like a micro break for me, when I say that, is like, 5-10 seconds, like catch our breath, and then we do another 50 steps, or we take 100 steps if it's like less steep. It just depends on the steepness of like how many steps we're counting to. So we'll count to 50 or whatever number suits you and take a little micro break and then repeat. And what is also great about this strategy is that, especially when clients are new, there is this point where we really want to, on an uphill, like there's this temptation to be taking constant breaks if you're feeling tired. And I totally get that. But there is benefit to finding a rhythm to continue moving forward. And counting can help you find that rhythm a little bit better, instead of just like walking and taking a break every time you think you need it. Because then what if you do that, a lot of people, when they're like in this negative thought loop spiral, they're just constantly stopping and starting and constantly stopping and starting, they're not making as much forward progress as fast, and they can end up being on their feet like a lot longer. And I don't know, for most people, like if you're on your feet around 6 to 8 hours, you start to feel really fatigued. So we want to find that nice balance of like keeping a rhythm up so that we can get up this tough and challenging thing. So counting also really helps with that. So we can be like, we're like, always thinking about our breathing and our steps at the same time. So we're like 1, breathe, 2, breathe, 3, breathe, 4, breathe, like making these steps forward, counting all the way up to 50, taking a nice little micro break, and then doing it again and again and again. And before you know it, you are at the top. This helps so much. I have gotten myself up many an uphill by counting to hundreds and like repeating the process. This is a great way to snap out of like, this sucks, I don't want to be here. This sucks, I don't want to be here. This sucks, I don't want to be here. Can be on repeat in your brain because your brain is focused on another task. Your brain is like, I am counting. My job is counting and moving my next foot forward. Another way you could like do this is, picking a point ahead of you and like doing the same sort of concept. But I think counting works a little bit better because it kind of really forces you to stay with like a rhythm a little bit better. But that is kind of a really practical strategy that people always doubt me on. But then when they do it, they're like, oh my gosh, that really worked. That really helped me get out of my own head and get moving. So again, when you get into backpacking, hiking, the outdoors, you're not signing up for a spa day, right? It's not an easy thing. It's meant to be sometimes challenging and challenging to you, but those challenges have the biggest opportunity to transform you and to grow you. These are the moments that help you build your resume of capability, right? These hard things that you take on. And every single time that you take on a challenging uphill, you are stacking the evidence of your capability, even if it was hard for you. Like sometimes we like to beat ourselves up and we're like, man, that uphill was really hard for me. But like you got to remind yourself that you did it, right? That you did it, or maybe you only did half of it, but that was progress compared to the last time you tried it, right? I've had clients who've had big goals to do like day hiking Mount Whitney in a day, or hiking Mount Whitney in a day, right? And that's a big challenge. It's like 7,000 feet. It's like roughly 26 miles round trip. And oftentimes they go out and the first attempt, it doesn't go as planned, right? Like even if they trained, it's just a lot and the terrain is tough and like hard on your joints. And so like maybe they only make it part of the way, but then they go back again and they make it a little bit further, but maybe they don't make it all the way. But each time they're making progress and they're stacking their capability, they're giving themselves some new data to work off of, right? These are all things that we're doing to grow ourselves in the outdoor, grow our capability, and raise the bar for ourselves. So the point of this episode is when it feels hard, I really just want to help you not make it harder by beating yourself up about it, right? This is the biggest lesson that I can share with you from over 12 years of hiking and climbing and mountaineering is that like you can do hard things, right? And we just got to remind ourselves of that. I want you to remember that this is hard and I can handle the hard thing. This is big, badass backcountry shit and I'm out here doing it, right? This is hard, but this is also the adventure of a lifetime, a challenge of my choosing. And I would hate to miss it because I'm so frazzled by the hard thing. These are things you can remind yourself of. We are not aiming for constant positivity, okay? That is not what this episode is about, but it's aiming for reminding yourself of your power and how capable you really are. So one thing that I just also like to ground myself with is I'm not promised tomorrow. We're not promised tomorrow. We're not promised our body and our health. We're not promised access to these wild and special places. So why not learn to feel more empowered on these hard moments, savor these uphill moments, the hard ones, the breathless ones, the ones that really push us, because they are also part of something really beautiful. They're part of your growth. They're proof that you're capable. They're where you get to see where you're made of. And something that I always remind my clients of is like the mountains are an amazing training ground. Like out in the mountains, we get to practice rising to the occasion in a challenging situation. And then we get to take those same tools back into everyday life. So imagine like if you can meet a steep uphill, a lot of elevation gain with desire, with capability, with let's fucking go energy, if you can do that outside on a tough uphill, then you have practiced exactly how you want to meet challenges off the trail too, with powerful thoughts, with personal power and capability instead of resistance, instead of willpower, right? We are approaching this with like aliveness and feeling so empowered in our capability and reminding ourselves like we want to do this. Like this is what we signed up for, right? So next time you're starting up that long pass or going up that summit, I want you to remember you do not have to dread it. You do not have to grind through it. You don't have to prove yourself to anyone. This is a challenge of your choosing. Remind yourself and practice showing up with curiosity and desire, reminding yourself of your own personal power and your capability. Remind yourself like, let's fucking go, tap into that energy. And you might just surprise yourself with actually potentially even enjoying the uphill part of it, right? Okay, so that is my little pep talk for the week. I hope it's maybe what some of you guys needed. I would be curious if you do go out and test some of these tools. Let me know how they work for you. But that's it for today. And I want to thank you for tuning in. If you love this episode, please feel free to share it with a friend, maybe who's somebody who's needing this for their first big mountain trip or something that is challenging for them. This might just be the pep talk they need. And if you want to go even deeper on all things backpacking, mindset, adventures, be sure to check out one of our programs like the Backpacking Badass program or our Adventurous Reinvention experience. I'll link both of those in the show notes if you want to check them out. So I'll see you next week and talk to you soon. Bye. Hey, I wanted to thank you real quick for tuning into the show and listening all the way to the end. If you love this episode and you want deeper support in becoming a safe, confident, and self-sufficient hiker and backpacker, then head over to shedreamsofalpine.com/waitlist to learn more about our Backpacking Badass coaching program, where I teach you absolutely everything you need to know to be self-reliant on the trails and stop waiting around on others for the adventure invite. So I'd love to help you more in your journey of stepping into your adventurous identity, and that program is the absolute best place for us to start working together. So again, that's shedreamsofalpine.com/waitlist, and you can learn all about it there. So that's it for today, folks. I hope you get to spend some time outside this week, and I'll be back very soon with a brand new episode. Bye.